Have lived the dream.
I have.
Yes, you have.
Okay.
And here's the dream.
Okay.
You were discovered by Steven Spielberg.
It's true. I was.
I was in film school in the late 70s. So Spielberg had just sort of exploded with Jaws, right, in 76. And I started film school in 77.
Okay.
So it's everybody wanted to be Spielberg. And then you hit the 80s and you start hearing stories, people getting discovered by Spielberg, and kind of ushered along. I know a guy, Larry Gooderman, who same story. Like he went to USC. Spielberg saw his student film and hires him. I forget what he hired him to do, but same, something. I think get coffee from it.
Exactly.
No, to direct, right? But so what was your experience?
My experience was, I always say the best advice I was never given was go to film school in California because all your friends get jobs. And so it took me 3.5 years to finish my 12.5-minute movie, Chicken Thing, and while I was finishing it in 3.5 years, all my friends graduated and started to get jobs. And they, I was still slaving away in my edit bay and all that. And they were working as PAs, like pages at NBC, and I was jealous. But one, Danelle Black, she became personal assistant to Kathleen Kennedy at Amblin. And she said, get your film, and we're picking second season directors for Amazing Stories. And I had one copy. And it was at the lab. The color timer had seen it, and I had seen it, and nobody else on Earth had seen it. And I ran and got the one 16-millimeter print that existed, and I took it to Amblin, and Danelle put it in the stack of shorts, which then, Steven was shooting the color purple at the time, and he had no time for the prior 6 months. And he suddenly walked in the building and had nothing to do, and said, "Where's Deborah Jellin, his development director?" And somebody said, "She's in the screening room watching student shorts." And he went in, and Chicken Thing came up, and he watched it unsolicited, which was remarkable, and said, "I want to meet this guy." And so I got a call, which I actually thought was a joke at first, it just didn't seem real to me. He didn't call, but it was like, Steven Spielberg wants to meet you. And so I bought new clothes. It was like a date. I bought all new clothes for this meeting and wanted to look smart and sophisticated. And I went over and met with him, and he was lovely. And he eventually said, "Do you write?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And I handed him a half-hour script that I'd written. And he said to me very, very pointedly, he says, "I'll read this tonight." And I went, "Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you." And then he repeated it, which was weird to me. He says, "No, I'll read this tonight." And what I didn't realize, because I wasn't in Hollywood yet, was that he wasn't going to have someone else read it. He was trying to tell me this is important enough to him that Steven Spielberg himself was going to read these words. But I didn't understand what that meant, because I was just a person. And so then he called back and he said, "Well, it was a Halloween story. We have a Halloween story. Do you have anything else?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And I had an idea, and I wrote it that weekend. And I turned it on Monday, and that's the thing they bought that became my first thing I ever directed. I wrote and directed. And then, of course, the production, the line producer, the producer, David, David, I forgot his name now. But he then ripped it apart, saying it was completely unproducible, and I had to utterly reconceive it. It was my first real challenge as a writer to find a way to achieve the same intention with a completely new device. But I ended up doing that, and we ended up shooting it, and it was the first thing I ever did. Steven was
a second season of
Amazing Stories. Yeah.
Right. Well, which episode was that?
It was Welcome to My Nightmare.
Okay.
It was the device had been this. Sort of the original device had been this sort of preternatural movie theater that was sort of a sentient being. It was alive, and so the kid gets trapped in this movie theater, and they get sucked into the screen. It was all very meta and all very obvious. And so then I had to figure out, well, what was I dealing with? I was dealing with a sort of like an irresistible force that an intractable force. And I said, well, what else is an intractable force? And I realized a movie plot that already exists. And a kid who loves the movies and wishes life could be like a movie. And he ends up making that wish upon a shooting star, as one does in a short, Amazing Stories. And why can't life be as good as a movie? Which is something I always thought in growing up, always. And except he's not, be careful what you wish for. He steps into the movie Psycho. And he suddenly finds himself dressed in Janet Leigh's dress. And he realized he's in a movie he's not going to survive, and that's the whole. And I realized a movie plot that the outcome of becomes irresistible force that you have to fight against them.
Wait, so you came up with this like on a Friday or something, and wrote it over the weekend, or was this like one of those things in your idea?
As I recall, it was an idea I had for this, and it was fast. It was like, to me, it was like 25 pages or something. It wasn't that long, and I wrote it over the weekend.
Hi, I'm Jeff Schechter, and this is the WritersRoom Pros Podcast. Make sure you subscribe, you ring that bell so you don't miss any conversations we have with writers, producers, directors, composers, actors, everybody involved in the business of storytelling. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram at WritersRoom Pro.
Yeah. I wrote on that with my dot matrix printer, tearing the things off the sides, I still have a couple.
How old are you?
I'm just slightly less old than you.
Yes, we've established that.
Yes, exactly. So anyways, Steven was very, very supportive. I mean, once he tells you have a job, like literally I had a job offer from Steven Spielberg, and I had nothing else. I had no agent, I had no manager, I had no nothing.
Were you still in school, or had you graduated? And this was UCLA, right?
I was in graduate school, and at that point I had 8 credits to go, and to this day I will say I still have 8 credits to go. For my master's. I didn't realize you had to complete your master's within a certain time frame, or I've tried to get my master's now, and I have to reapply to UCLA from scratch. There's no after 30 years, you can't just pick it up and pay for the last 8 units. So I have opted not to do that yet. I don't care that much, I guess.
I think there's a really good online college.
Columbia.
What's it, like Arizona, Piedmont or something? You can get your degree, I think, in 2 months.
I can do that. Which okay.
I don't
know. Yeah. But no one's ever asked to see my master's in film and television. So anyways, I started with Steven there, and he was supportive. He brought me in to pitch on Small Soldiers. His sister had written a draft of that. I was hired to write a draft of one of many, many people who wrote a draft of Gremlins 2. I'm in an elite club of people who wrote 20. I think there were 26 writers wrote drafts of Gremlins 2. And Steven ended up getting exactly what he wanted, which is not what I thought was most interesting. And so I loved Gremlins as a movie. Anyways, and so he's been a supporter throughout my career, and I'm grateful. But he really wasn't on set. I've never seen him direct. I've never been on set with him. I didn't press the invitation, and I never offered it. And so, he came on set once during the shoot, and by then they were kind of used to him showing up in Amazing Stories, and he would breeze in, change the lens, and leave, and then they would change the lens back after he left and keep moving. That's sort of how it worked.
Does he know?
I have no idea what he knows. I'm assuming he doesn't.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
This will be exciting. I'm gonna email him.
Good.
Did you know what was going on behind your back on Amazing Stories?
I did have one thing about him. He had a very specific idea about my episode, my first Amazing Stories, and he really was adamant that it should be cut a certain way. And I was trying to explain why that wasn't the best way to do it. And finally, I was allowed to create 2 different, and this is the offline cuts, like these videotape things. Right. We created 2 offline cuts of the show with the ending that he wanted. I don't remember what it was anymore, quite frankly, and the ending that I'd written, which I thought had turned out well, and he finally relented and let me have my ending.
Wow.
So that was nice.
Yeah. Well, Steven Spielberg, it's like you can afford to throw you a bone.
He doesn't always, though. He doesn't always.
I had lunch with John Badham.
Oh, yeah.
And John Badham, who we're going to get to do an episode also, right?
He's a nice guy.
Nicest guy. He directed Saturday Night Fever and 100 million War Games, right?
Yeah.
And he says that he discovered Steven Spielberg.
Oh.
That he was working. What was he working on? I got to remember the story. Anyway, same thing. Spielberg did his film at USC, and Badham saw it and said he was working on it. It was Night Gallery. That's what it was. Badham was working on Night Gallery and saw Spielberg's film, his USC senior film and said, "Oh," and recommended him, and that's how Spielberg.
Wow, that's amazing! I've never heard that.
Yeah, so
is that well known?
I don't know. It's well known now. We may cut it out so Batman can tell the story again.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, but anyway, so it feels like it's interesting to to actually for me to know two people, one who discovered Steven Spielberg and somebody who was discovered by Steven Spielberg. Yeah, and then there's me, who's been ignored by Steven Spielberg.
But that's part of the that is really the chain. At this part in my career, where I'm still younger than you, you start giving back. You start finding filmmakers who you go, that reminds me of me. That person has a great eye, and that person, and I've been very active in that at the Guild, and very active I was co-chair of diversity for the DGA for 7 years, and created a whole program to bring up diverse and female it's all internal DGA, but bring up DGA members who want to be episodic television directors. And we created a program of education and mentorship, because it takes that lift. Honestly, as I started saying, when I had Steven Spielberg's job offer and nothing else, I started cold calling agencies and going, "Hi, my name is Todd Holland. I'm a film student at UCLA, and Steven Spielberg has offered me a job writing and directing for Amazing Stories. Would you like to see my student film?" And it was like, yes. Of course it was yes. I had my pick of any agency I wanted. I was courted, and it was very confusing. But it was that what everyone's missing is that sense of heat to move to the next level. If you don't have that, and Steven gave me that in that moment. And then, of course, I famously was meeting David Hoberman at Disney during that first 3 weeks or something of my Hollywood introduction. And we bumped into Jeffrey Katzenberg in the hallway, and he just looked at me without even saying hello and said, "Oh, so you're the flavor of the week," and moved on.
Was he saw you with Hoberman, or?
Yeah. I didn't meet with Jeffrey. I was just there in the building, So it's just funny. It's just like, it's just a funny, Hollywood's just a funny business.